Hello, and welcome to Connecting You to You Radio, where we tune in to receive the messages of health and well being that are being broadcast from the soul. I'm your host, Lisa Warner, author of The Simplicity of Self-Healing. I show you how to heal your body naturally by combining your body's innate intelligence with the wisdom of your own soul, so that you can break through the mental programming of limiting beliefs that cause disease and make healing your body and changing your life simple. Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Soul Stories, because every soul has a story. And the more we share our stories and tell our stories, the more we realize that we are far more similar than we are different. I'm your host, Lisa Warner. I am the author of The Simplicity of Self-Healing. And today, I'm so excited to have my very good friend, Dr. Karen Kan, here with us. Karen is an international best-selling author of the book, many books. Sensitivity is Your Superpower is one of her books. She is also a co-star along with me in the movie The Inside Effects: How the Body Heals Itself. And Karen has transitioned from being a medical doctor to a doctor of light medicine. So we are so excited to have her here today, and I can't wait, Karen, to hear your story. Welcome.
Thanks, Lisa, so much. It's wonderful that you have this platform for people to share their stories, and sometimes just in sharing the story, we can actually feel like a healing, going on, even within ourselves as we share. So thank you for doing this.
You're welcome. Yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, where did your whole story start? Where were you born? Where did you grow up?
Well, I am the eldest child of a Chinese family, and back then, my parents had gone to school in Hong Kong, so they had gone to college, and so a higher degree. Not everybody did do that. For example, even when I went to Hong Kong in my 20s, the women there were just so amazed and kind of curious that I would be in university. Like, because they were like, "Aren't you trying to get your MRS degree?" You know, like to get married. And I'm like, "No." Wow, you want to be a doctor? Yeah. So it's kind of funny. Like, that's not that long ago, but they still had that kind of cultural thing, which we had kind of gotten over that in the US, right? Like it's like women are doctors, women are, all these different things. So my mom being, university, I mean, it was different, back then. And so when they came to Canada, they had all of $20 apparently, was what I heard. And we stayed with friends, their friends, very, very, very good friends who had been in Canada a bit longer. And of course, the first thing they wanted to do was get a job. Luckily because of the climate in Canada, as well as their university degrees, they were able to get teaching jobs very, very easily. Here's the funny thing. Okay, I know it's my mom's story, not mine, but segue into mine. So my mom, she's on the phone, and back then they did all these interviews by phone, and they were desperate for teachers, right? So she interviews, and she just does fantastic, and she always tells the story that she gets A plus in English in school, but she failed Chinese. So in walks this Chinese woman, right? And the principal's like, "Who are you?" And she goes, "Well, I'm Susan Can." And he just goes like, "You're Chinese." And she goes, "Yeah." But your English is so good, right? She goes, "Oh yeah, I failed Chinese." But she has no accent. She has actually a slightly British accent if you really listen. So it's very, very interesting. Yeah, she's very, very good. So I just grew up in this really, in this household where education was really, really important. And in fact, in the culture in first generation Canadian, Chinese Canadian children, you were expected to do your family proud, as many families have that culturally, but you had to pretty much get A pluses in school and be at the top of the class, and you know funnel into one of several acceptable professions. Now, my parents are actually much more flexible than most people their age, possibly because some of the women and other people were not, university grads, but both my mom and dad were. But the guys, the men were, doctors and engineers and dentists and part of the acceptable professions. And so their children were basically, funneled into you need to be, a medical doctor and a specialist, even better, you know, um, like a dentist was acceptable, not ideal, but acceptable. Engineer, like you had to be a high wage earner professional. Like being a lowly teacher, like my both parents were, was a little bit almost shameful, but not quite. Like it wasn't said out loud, but my mom always went through this, self-esteem thing where she saw her women friends with fur coats and diamond rings and things that were considered high status, but she didn't have that. And my dad was not, I mean, he came from a really, really poor family, so it wasn't important. And not only that, his love language is acts of service. My mom's love language, well, she has three, but definitely not the one my dad has. So they didn't get along for most of my childhood because my mom was like, positive affirmations, physical touch, and gifts. And his was acts of service, right? So it just did not like, and luckily I did share the love languages with them a lot later, and that did help their relationship not be so conflictual because of not understanding how each person was loving each other. So the energy though of the expectation passed down, but it was very subtle. But I was already just my personality, I was born a high achiever. It was just sometimes we're just made that way. So I was like, okay, so and you know me well enough to know, like I when I grew up, I was like, yes, I did want to be top of the class, but the thing was this, I didn't necessarily struggle. Like I was stressed out all the time because I wanted to be top of the class, but I literally was. It was also internal. Like it just was really, really important for me to do my best. And back then, it meant try to be perfect. Now I know doing your best is not necessarily being perfect. So I am a recovering perfectionist. Yes, I admit that. Amongst other things like recovering codependent and all sorts of things. So, um, but yeah, so there was this expectation to become, a doctor, something like that. And there was also an expectation to be good at music. So my parents did not have the same money as their colleagues that had gone to medical school and, they were now surgeons and, they had more money and they were lowly teachers. So they didn't have as much money. So, whereas their children went to piano classes and violin classes and flute classes, since the age of 3, very normal, right? Like in Canada, it's like you're a figure skater, I'm a figure skater. So, we hear about Elvis Stoiko from Canada, or Wayne Gretzky. I mean, they had skates on when they were 3, right? I mean, that's normal, right? So for a Chinese family, it's normal to have their children in at least, 2 or 3 different instruments, plus requiring them to be, in Chinese school, plus requiring them to be A+ students in school. So I did want to learn piano, but my mom was a really well. They're both really really good teachers. So my mom said, I think I was 3 or 4. She said, "Are you going to practice?" And I'm like, "No." At that point, right? And she's like, "Well, okay, well, we're not going to buy you a piano then, right?" And she was very, I mean, I think that's kind of appropriate. So I didn't get the piano, but then I started really wanting to play piano. So she was like reverse psychology woman. Like she was incredible, right?
Uh,
So then I just kept desiring it and desiring it and desiring. So whereas everyone had been, playing piano for many, many years, I started age 10, and that was like old person age, okay, for Chinese children. So they finally got enough money saved. I still remember it was $1,600, for that piano, and they saved it. They saved it, so I could play it. And my mom knew it was right, like the right timing, because she had brought this little plug-in electric piano at home. It was like this big with like 1.5 octaves. and I would practice every day. And she would
Wow.
teach me a few things. She didn't play a lot, but we learned like do re mi, from like Sound of Music and stuff like that. And she was watching. And she's like, she's practicing every day the same song. And then when we had to return the electric piano, she's so sweet. She actually drew out 2 or 3 octaves of piano keys. She caught like I don't know how she did. She was a teacher and she loved crafts and everything like that. So she actually drew out the piano keys like perfectly. And I played on the pretend piano keys. And then she's like, okay, I think we should buy her piano. She's trying to make sounds while she's playing it was hilarious. So I got the piano, and my mom was very, like I said, very good with people and kind of manipulative and in a positive way, and sometimes negative, but in a positive way. She says to me, and talk about manifesting, right? She says to me, I think you're very smart. I think that you will surpass all the other Chinese children in piano, even though you started late, except for Jason Lee, because he's a true genius, right? And guess what I did? I did exactly what she said, right? Because I'm very obedient. So I did. I just kept at it, kept at it, kept at it. And whereas they were waning their interest, I had the desire and passion so much that built up till age 10. I went like, I don't know how many grades in one year, like 3 grades or 4 grades in one year. My dad had hired his high school student Melissa as my piano teacher, and she's like, I think she should do competition. And I actually didn't like that, but I didn't have a choice, so we ended up doing it. I did win a whole bunch of things. Again, didn't actually want to do it. Didn't like competing, didn't like performing, just like playing. But it was just a thing. You just did it. Everybody did it, so I figured I have to do it. And sure enough, the one guy that I didn't beat, or I ended up with my ARCT, which is a very high level of competency in piano. I didn't do my teacher's training, although I'm a natural teacher, so I probably should have done that one. But I did the performance training. Go figure. I don't know why I took that one. But anyway, so the first time that final exam, I was so nervous. My hands were shaking and sweating, and I made mistake after mistake after mistake. I failed. You had to get at least, I think, a 75 or something to pass. I got like a 69 or something, and I can't remember. It was traumatic. I cried for 3 days straight. Yep, I'm in bed crying, 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 crying. And my mom was like, "Oh my god!" Right, so she had to counsel me, a little like coach me, and she says, "It's okay, it's okay, it's just piano." It's like, no, it's my whole life. Um, and then finally she says, "Well, she says, I think if you don't do it again, you'll regret it." I'm like, I just want to forget about it, right? But I thought about what she said. She says, like, you're going to university soon and you're not gonna have time to do it. So now's the time if you want to do it again. So I thought about it, and she's a really good teacher and really good coach and counselor. So after all those days of crying, I settled in and said, well, I didn't swear back then, but if I did swear, I'd be like, oh, F it, I'm just going to do it again, right? So I ended up changing piano teachers. What I realized was the piano teacher I had was this big Bavarian Russian type woman, right? And she was very emotional, and I'm very like very rigid and mathematical, and at least I was at the time. And so she's telling me, express yourself, express, Karen, express, right? And I was like, I don't know how to do that. Right? So I was just trying to get the notes right. So then my old piano teacher said, okay, well, I know this other lady, Amy. I think maybe you'll get along better. So I went to Amy. Well, Amy's Chinese Canadian, and she was very technical. So she would say, "Oh yes, well, you know what? With that note, I'm going to have you do this with your wrist, and you see how that note feels softer. Can you hear that?" And I was like, oh my gosh, I can. So she was showing me my arm position, the weighting. She wasn't just telling me, express, express, right? Which I was like, it's fine, I'm Chinese Canadian. We don't show our emotions. How much we express? Right? So Amy was just really technical. I had so much more confidence. I did the same pieces, thankfully, which were very, very difficult pieces. And it was like, And this is like a lesson because I went into that exam going, you know what? I don't give a beep, pass, fail. I don't really care. I don't really care. I realize this is not my life. I'm not going to be a professional. I'm not going to be in front of an orchestra like Jason Lee, the one guy who I didn't beat, right? He went to like Hamburg or someplace and played with a whole orchestra. That would have like killed me had I been that good, right? I'd be like, no way, I'm never doing that. No, 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 not in front of all those people. So, yeah, so I just went into that exam and I was like, I don't care. I really don't care. I'm just gonna play for fun, and they fail me, they fail me, they pass me. That I don't really care. And you know what? I wasn't nervous, right? So I just did. I was like expressing myself right the way that I could. And the funny thing is, all these little tests. I was really good at the hearing test. That was always very easy. But the sight reading, that was really hard. They would put a new piece of music in front of you, and they say play it. So I mean, it wasn't like really super hard. I mean, the first one I got, the first test where I failed, years before, it was all these chords, and I couldn't stand chords. But I was nervous. You see, I literally manifested what I did not desire. The second time, I didn't care, right? I just let go, unattached to the outcome. So I got exactly the sight reading I love the most. He was like, what did they? Oh, I forgot what the name of that type of piece is. It was like la 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 la. Those I liked, right? Chords. Bleh. So it was like the perfect thing. The scale they asked me to do the first time it was super hard, like F sharp minor or something. The second time was fairly easy. Maybe they knew I failed the first time. I don't know. Anyway, but it was relatively easy, and I did all my pieces, didn't really make any major mistakes, right? And the hearing test I always got perfect, so yeah, that was fine. And I got like, yeah, they never give really high marks, okay, in music. Like all my other marks were indeed like 95, 100%, like in school. Music was my lowest score. Yeah, so I think it was 85 or something like 82, 85, something like that, right? So obviously I passed because 70 is pass, or 75 was a pass. Yeah, and I was like, oh, cool, I got my ARCT, right? So that was it. And okay, you're gonna love this. I don't know if I told you the story. So my mom says, well, one of the reasons why you need this degree, the ARCT, is because one day you will be pregnant, and when you're pregnant, you will need an income, and then you can teach piano. Yeah, because she because she says, well, you see these other jobs at McDonald's and things like that, right? For whatever it was back then, $3 an hour or $4 an hour. She says, no, piano, you can charge $15 an hour. I said, that is true. Right? So I did start teaching piano and get some pocket money, that kind of thing. But the whole time I believed her. Like if I got pregnant, then I would have to stop everything and have an income, and I could work from home. Go figure, right now, work from home and, have piano students, and I would have a decent income. I never even questioned how ridiculous that could be. And the reason, the reason is like when she was pregnant, she was really sick.
Mm.
So she was like all of 90 pounds or something crazy like that. So us babies were like tiny, tiny, babies. So she was really unhealthy. So she just projected her thought of what it's like to be pregnant onto me. And I didn't know any better. So I was like, okay, makes sense to me. My left brain's like, yeah, you make more money, you become a piano tutor. But later on, as I got older, I just realized how ridiculous that was because I saw all these pregnant women in medicine doing doing their thing. And my dad, that's partway through the high school. So my mom had this idea, right? Like, I'm going to go to school, be really educated, and then the fallback when I'm pregnant is, you know, teaching piano. My dad, on the other hand, was much more progressive in that he didn't expect as much, even though I was the first child, because I wasn't a boy, maybe, but the boys were expected to, definitely be, highest and he was the second actually child. His older brother died when he was young, so he was never treated as the firstborn. And it's great to be treated as a firstborn because you're like the king. You get the most money, the most presents. All the inheritance goes to you, not any of the girls or any of the siblings, even if you're a boy. Like that's all these, Chinese culture things, right? But he was really progressive because he went to school. And he told me he saw me looking at 17 magazine. I know I cringe to admit this, but like I was really into workouts, and they had these workouts, and they had the hairstyle and makeup and all this kind of stuff. So I was really into that as a teenager. And he says, "Oh, here's an article on from magazine on haircuts, or like he was really sweet, giving me some stuff. Oh my gosh, my mom freaked out. She is not becoming a hairdresser. You do not get A+ in schools to become a hairdresser." My dad's like, "Okay, okay," like, come on. I mean, she likes it. So I was like giving her, don't encourage her. I'm exaggerating. She wasn't that forceful, but it was hilarious. Looking back, it was hilarious. So I was like, okay, I'm not allowed to be what I desire to be. Okay, well, I guess I'll be what I'm good at. Right. So I did resist the whole doctor thing, but come to find out, I really like people. I really like science. Loved biology. Physiology was like so cool. Right. Loved chemistry. And actually, well, actually, I'm going too far because when I was in school, grade 9, my science teacher didn't know how to control the class, and me being extremely shy and one of the only Asian people in the entire school. There was some racism there, and but also, I mean, I had the sign on my forehead, "Abuse me," right? Because I'm so scared. So I was getting bullied a lot. Um, and it didn't I know why now, but it didn't take long between grade school and high school for them to figure out that I was bullyable. I wasn't that good an athlete, so my that was my other low score, was gym. The only reason I got a higher score in gym was because my health score was 100, right? When we did, the cardiovascular system, like all this kinds of health, whatever, all the bookish stuff, I got 100, so it pulled my 75 up, yeah. So, but my two best things I did in gym, which is hilarious, is dance. But now you can, like, in America, when I came to America, I was like, "Wow, they got figure skating. You can do figure skating for your gym. That is so cool," But in Canada, it was very restricted. I think I did good in swimming because I already took swimming lessons, and dance. That was it. But mom's like, "You are not becoming a dancer. This is a terrible profession," right? So I was just always focused, focused, focused on the science. And then the first year, because the science teacher was so, you know, I mean, the class, I mean, you could throw anything in class. I mean, it was just, he would just smile and go, "Okay, children, stop that now," right? People are loud and noisy. And I was like the only person in there trying to learn. I'm in there, like sitting there terrified because I'm between like the worst kid in class who's at either behind me or in front of me. Oh my gosh. I was like, this is a nightmare. I hate this class. I hate this class. I hate this class. And so I said to my dad, he's a high school teacher. I said, "I hate science." And he's like, "You hate science? Why do you hate science?" And so, well, it's a terrible class. People making fun of me. I'm getting bullied. I didn't know the word bully, but people are doing this and that to me, and the teacher's not controlling the class, and I'm so frustrated and upset and everything like that. And he was very good. He said, maybe it's just the teacher, but if you don't take science next year in grade 10, all these other professions are now closed to you. Maybe try again, maybe take science again and see if you like it. Because it's hard to tell that you don't like science because what you're telling me is you don't like the teacher, you don't like the class. So I thought about it because I'm like, well, if I was, I think I should go into business, but but maybe he's right. Thankfully, I thought about it. So maybe he's right. So I thought, okay, all right, I'll add a science class to grade 10. And that science teacher, Mr. White, was hilarious. Not only did he have full control of the class, he had us in stitches all the time. And so I had him for a couple, and then I had Mr. Giles and Mr. I forgot the Murdoch. Anyway, they were all funny. witty, just now I loved science. Right? And I thought, thank goodness.
Right? Wow.
Not a teary moment. Thank
Ah,
goodness I listened to my dad.
wow, what great
Yeah.
parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, well, I'm in business, but I mean, I wouldn't be who I am today, right? If I just fell for this is hard, I don't like this, right? And just ran away instead of re saying, well, maybe it's not always like that, right? So just that openness was so cool. Yeah, so I fell in love with science, hated math. I was really good at it. I'm like, seriously, like if I were me today back then, it would have been hysterical because I'd be like, sit in class going, do I care what speed the squirrel is running up the tree and the fox is running after it? Seriously, how is this going to help me in any part of my real life? But I was so innocent, I had no idea. So I was just like, okay, you want me to figure out the square root of whatever and the tangent, the angle of the squirrel running up the tree? And I was like, okay, right. And the math teacher she was she was fierce. I was terrified of her. But I was like, okay, yeah, but I got really high marks in math. It's just this, if somebody had said to me, which I would now say, not the teenagers necessarily are listening to this, but people that hate math, right, in school. I said, okay, well, first of all, you're in school, so that's what your parents chose, what you chose. That's fine, right? But here's the thing: if you hate math, I got to tell you the secret. The secret isn't that in real life you will need to find out how fast the squirrel runs up the tree so the fox doesn't catch it. The secret is they make you do math so you can solve problems. Had they told me that I know this is completely seemingly irrelevant to your life, but you know what? The muscle, the muscle that you work out in figuring out this problem, that is going to help you for the rest of your life make decisions. If they had said that, I would have been like, "Oh, okay." Or they would make it applicable, right? They would say, "Okay, well, here's the thing. If you choose to, be an adult and earn money and pay taxes, none of us really choose to pay taxes unless we know better. But anyway, so say you were like, oh, this is inevitable. I need to pay taxes or I need to figure out a contract. This is a good contract, right? How are you supposed to know that if you can't do math? You don't. You're like, I don't know. Like, so I think that some of the people, like even really, 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 really like rock star, literally rock stars, or like, I don't know, athletic stars that didn't actually go to school or didn't finish high school or something like that, they're at a disadvantage because they can get taken advantage of by people who do know and that could cheat them. So yeah, on some level, I get it. I get it. And like I said, I hated math, hated math, hated math, and then of course I decided to go through science, but then you had to do math in university, and more math and more math. And so I remember in natural sciences in Canada, the universities were very limited in terms of, especially if you're in science, in terms of what kinds of like electives you could take. Because later on, when I moved to America and was listening to my medical colleagues about what electives they took, like one took like Irish dance or something, and another took figure skating, and another took something like I was like, oh, I would have loved to do that. No, first of all, there was no room in that really really tough science schedule where you got your science classes and you have a lab. Okay, it was much more work than the business people, the gym people, like anybody else. So much work. The workload was incredible. There was no room for an elective, and even that there weren't electives. You couldn't do a swimming elective. You couldn't do a dance elective. It didn't exist. So you kind of had to sort. You know what my elective was? It was linguistics.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
oh,
Well, one that fit the class. Well, actually, the first elective was religions of the world. I thought, oh, I'm gonna ace this. One
ah,
book's $14. All my other books are $114, right? This thick. How hard could it be? Oh my gosh. I had to go into the dictionary about 5 times reading the first 2 pages.
oh, gee.
And I thought, this is an elective, and I am gonna fail this. So Said to the counselor, "Okay, I'm not doing this." It was funny because it kind of, if you think about what I do now, religions of the world, you know what I mean? It would have been actually pretty interesting. So I had this inkling about spirituality and religion and stuff like that, but it was so thick and heavy. I'm like, oh, I have so much work as it is. I can't do this. So they said, well, there's not that much. You can take this linguistics class. I'm like, I don't even know what linguistics is. So my friend was taking it, so I thought, well, I'll accompany her and do this class. Well, it was really hard too, but at least I could understand the words. The book wasn't that thick, thankfully, you know, and it wasn't $100. So it was like, whatever, $20. So we're working through this class. I mean, it would take me 4 hours to do the assignment, and to be honest, I don't think my linguistics is any better right now than it was then. I'm not sure if I learned anything, but it was literally like this problem solving thing. It was the same engine that I used to do calculus,
Mm.
which was fascinating. Like I said, I don't remember any of it, but yeah, well, I think the professor knew that that I was helping her. So I could have gotten in really big trouble. But I was like here are all these students from business and arts and everybody taking linguistics, and here's the science nerd, right? Me and Anna, the science nerds in class. People were so lost in class. They're failing left, right, and center. But the science person here is getting A plus, right? Because it's a problem that we're solving, and I could do. And then Anna was trying to figure out what was going on too. So I would say it in a way that she would understand it, and then she would do the home play, right? But I was giving her major hints, right? So luckily, I didn't get kicked out because I was a good student, but because I was helping Anna. But yeah, she got a B, I got an A plus, something like that in linguistics. Um, and then I just remember like every winter at Christmas time, everybody would be going home for Christmas except the science students. We would end up with an exam, usually on the 22nd or the 23rd, right before and these exams are 3 hours long. And luckily, the music exams I had to do in high school, not in high school, but because I was studying piano, those were 3 to 3.5 hours long. So I was used to doing really long exams, so that was not an issue. A lot of first year students at university couldn't. I mean, they just couldn't tolerate it. The engineers, all these guys with the big thick leather jackets, are engineers. Those hot shots, half of them fail out the first year. So now they have this jacket that says engineering. It's really embarrassing. Yes, yes. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah. Um, but I really enjoyed undergrad, and then when I went to medical school, part of me was like, "You're just going to do what all Chinese children do." But I'm like, "But wait, my parents aren't actually pressuring me to do that," which is really weird because all the other Chinese parents are pressuring their children. But my personality is really competitive. My self-esteem was less than stellar. So I needed these outside, accolades to make me feel good. And then if somebody didn't like me, oh my God, right? Like I just took everything personally, good or bad. So yeah, I thought, well, people going to medicine, what else can I do? So I went to, I thought, optometry would be really cool because I really liked my optometrist. He was such a sweetheart.
Mm.
And I visited, there's only one, and of course I felt special because it was like one English optometry school in all of Ontario or whatever. Right. So I went to Waterloo and it's gorgeous. Like the school was gorgeous. Everything was great. And I was so excited. I wasn't sure I was going to get in, but I was just really excited. And I talked to my Dr. Sheldon, my optometrist. He goes, "Do you have good grades in school?" "Yeah, I do. I really do well in school." He goes, "I think you're going to be bored in optometry." And my heart just sank. I was so like attached to going to that school. But I thought I really respect him, right? And I thought, oh, okay. So what else could I do? Well, I had really bad skin, like horrible, horrible acne. Didn't understand then that it was due to, gut problems from having antibiotics when I was 3 years old and yada, yada. So I had horrible, horrible skin, wore tons of makeup, saw the dermatologist, another doctor. Now she was interesting. She had no personality at all. She was nice, but like zero, like just like deadpan, like no ups and downs, just deadpan. Um, and she would like literally, this is gross, guys. So cover yours. So she would squish my zits, right, with the comedone extractor. And I thought, and my face would come out red. It was so embarrassing in front of all these people after waiting an hour for the appointment, right? And all these people looking at me like, because my face is all red. But it felt really satisfying to do that. And I thought, that's fun. That's fun. I like, cool things like abscesses and they're neat, Yeah, I remember the one time my dad had a splinter. Where do you have a splinter? Yeah, he had a splinter somewhere, and I took the tweezers and took it out. And I thought it was the coolest thing, right? They're like, you should be a doctor, right? Because like there, I wasn't afraid of blood. The one time I took the scissors. I was trying to open a Barbie package, and my parents were asleep. It was like Christmas morning or something, and I went psh, and it went right into my hand, and so I was like, blood. There's blood spilling, and I was like, uh oh. I wake up my mom. I'm like, my hand is bleeding. And she's like, what? She jumps up, she comes to the bathroom, right? There's blood, and the Barbie, what were you doing? I'm trying to order the Barbie package. Now I know not to do it that way. And she's, oh, maybe it's dirty. We'll have to clean it. So she pushes on it. This huge column of blood comes out, splashes just like on, if people watch the Supernatural show, it's hilarious, splashes on the mirror, like this blood splatter, right? She's horrified. I'm laughing. I think it's hilarious, right? It doesn't really hurt, right? She goes, wow, you're so brave. You should be a doctor. So all these little things to finally get me there. So I thought, well, I like sort of like the dermatologist. She does kind of fun stuff. So I thought, well, how do I become a dermatologist? This is, well, you have to get your MD first. I'm like, okay. And I saw my other, Chinese friends, they were doing it. And I thought, well, they're a little older and a year older and they're doing it. And I'm like, I think I'm as smart as they are. So I'm being competitive. I decided to go to medical school. And so my dad's friends, being all the men, were all, medicine. They're like, oh, you have to go to Queens. No, 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 you have to go to University of Toronto. That's the best medical school. No, 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 it's Queens. They're going back and forth, back and forth. And Western's better than, and so I thought, well, McGill, no, McGill. And I'm like, I'm not going to Quebec. I'm just not. So that's off, right? So I apply to all the places, and McMaster was where I did my undergrad. And I really, really, really wanted to go to McMaster because they were special. They took older students that had varying different experiences, really seemed to be more heart based, like not just your good grades and you're a nerd, And I thought this is really cool. So I applied to there and did the usual, interview and the whole bit. Well, I was just so naive, Lisa. I didn't know the world at all. People in McMaster are looking for people that have been in the Peace Corps, right? Have like built communities for the African children, like those types of people. I'm like, I'm a really good student. I really like people, and I'm really good at math. What I mean? It was like, no, you're not mature enough to be in this program. They didn't say that, but that's so I got refused. Right? My heart was like so sinking. But then I went and visited some of the other universities, and I really liked Ottawa U. And I thought, well, I didn't really heard too much about it, but this is a brand new building. And I really like the building and I like the city. But none of my um, mom and dad's friends ever went there because it was relatively new. But I also have a stubborn streak, thanks to my dad. So I went and I decided to, Ottawa U said yes. I think I got a yes from Western, yes from University of Ottawa. I don't know if I applied to Queens. I can't remember. And then, yes, in Ottawa U, and I decided Ottawa U. Oh my gosh. It was like, why are you going there? And I'm like, because I like the school and I like the people I met. And, you know, so my parents weren't too pleased, mostly because their friends were saying, oh, what a waste.
Mm.
So I went to Ottawa, really enjoyed it. And the funny thing is that we had some sort of accreditation. Each school gets accredited, I think, every 5 years by an accrediting body to see how good they are. Well, guess what? University of Toronto failed their accreditation. McGill barely passed.
Wow.
Western got a 2-year probation. Queens did not pass. Ottawa U got a full 5 stars. See you in 5 years or 7 years or whatever the accreditation. Yeah, we were the best.
Wow.
We were not well known. Right, but you remember, they're my parents' friends, right? Like back then, maybe they were the best. They assumed it was going to be the best because they had the best reputation, blah blah blah. But also, I think that had I gone to U of T, I probably in Toronto, probably would have been partying. I mean, it's kind of funny because I was not much of a partier, but when I was with the Chinese community, I was like the life of the party, like the star. I was funny. I was like the most outgoing, right? When I was the only Chinese person, right? Then I was quiet. I was mousy. I was meek. I was scared out of my mind, right? Somebody might squish me, because I'm a nerd. But had I been to U of T, I would have been the most popular chick on the block, and I would not. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I might have partied a lot because I would have been instantly popular because I was like good looking and
Wow.
yeah. But I went to school where there weren't that many Chinese people and it's not that bad like racism and stuff in Canada. It's very subtle. It's very subtle. So I felt like it was okay, and I really did like my teachers a lot at University of Ottawa. Actually, there's a famous guy who graduated 2 classes ahead of me, who's now very well known in the wellness industry. Him and I have things that we see not eye to eye on, but not that he knows me. His name is Mark Hyman. Do you know Mark?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he's very very famous guy. Sort of like Dave Asprey is really famous, bulletproof guy, in medicine. Like Mark Hyman is a Canadian, best-selling author, multi-time best-selling author. Yeah, yeah. So he's from Ottawa U as well. And then after that, it was like, oh, great. I was very popular, after, getting to know people in Ottawa. And when I graduated, my preceptors were like, wow, we want you to work with us. And I was like, awesome. Right. Like, I was like, literally had patients there already. Like, it was like, job was just like laid out on a platter. It was going to be easy town. Woo! And then my husband's like, well, my PhD professor is moving to the US, so I have to go. I was like, well, what about me? Like, what? Okay, so we're married. So now what do I do? Right. So I thought, okay, well, a good wife follows her husband. Learned that from my mom. Um, Followed him to the States while I had no job. So I went from being, again, developing, well known, popular, like because I was really good with patients and really like on top of things and just a really good doctor to who are you from Canada? Full obscurity. Then I got cheated by the lawyer that was trying to $5,000. There was a hospital that paid him to bring me on board, and yeah, he didn't do anything. So that was
Oh,
interesting. And then yeah, so the whole licensing thing was interesting. But in the US, they do things really differently in many ways. First of all, in Canada, if you're a medical doctor, just like anybody else, especially if you're salaried, you get maternity leave.
mm,
And there's not that many salary doctors in Canada. Maybe there are more now, but there were many women with kids and stuff. They would be salaried. They'd usually a lower income, place where they work, so they didn't earn as much money as their, male counterparts did, who were more entrepreneurial. But it was, they were like, they take like 2 years off, and they get paid for most of that. So I asked about maternity leave here, and they looked at me like I had two horns. Like, as a doctor, I'm like, yes. Wow. You have that in Canada? Yes. We have maternity leave too, and it's this long. And they're like, wow. It's just like so it's such a novelty, right? And the mental health system was very different here as well, because in Canada, it was just like mental health was just part of health. So everything was covered through the Ontario Health Insurance Program, the OHIP. Whereas here, I had to like advocate and paperwork and It's like there's one insurance company in Canada. There are 50 that I have to deal with. And thank goodness I was salaried, so they dealt with the insurance companies. But I had to ask permission all the time to advocate for my patient. This person needs mental health care. It's unlimited. If they smoke, if whatever, that's unlimited health care, except for mental health care. I said, what is that? Well, you only get 20 mental health care visits a year in that insurance. I'm like, why? They have unlimited for their diabetes, their cholesterol, everything like that. Why is it limited to 20? Well, that's the way it is here. I'm like, but it doesn't make sense. So I spent a lot of my early years fighting because I was in fight mode at the moment at that time. So I was fighting and fighting and fighting. Couldn't believe like, what do you mean you don't have something for children with mental health issues? You have to ship them away to this institution because we don't have anybody? What? Like I was just so I was from a big city, right? So I'm now in a small city. So it was really different, and I had some trouble at the beginning. But I was also from a university setting, and I wasn't very laid back. So I was trying to like pull like all my colleagues who are very laid back, all athletes, in Lake Placid, pull them up to some imaginary standard
Mm.
that I had. Now the administrator loved it because I did all this on my free time.
Oh.
Yeah, I made charts. I made, and you'll laugh about this one. I wanted to make a standard where, all the well child checks, we had all the things check marked, include all their vaccinations up to date, right? All the everything was up to date, blah blah blah. And I made this chart. I put in, and I literally instituted my version of how things should run because things were falling through the cracks, and just bugged the heck out of me because I wanted mastery. So my colleagues were like, "Oh my God, what's she instituting now?" But the administrators thought it was great. And the funny thing is, they got accredited because hospitals do get accredited,
Mhm.
and they credited, and they're frightened. Hospitals are scared when this happens because they could, be unaccredited, and then they could lose lots of money and all this kind of stuff, right? So the doctors, they're all salaried here. Like they're like, yeah, whatever, But because I had created these charts, these flow sheets, and now it's all automated through, you know, um, computers, but back then we didn't have it. The audit people or the accreditation people, they audited, the practice and everything like that. I said, "Wow, these are really amazing charts. Can we take a copy of that? Who made these?" And they're like, "Oh, Dr. Karen." And it was hilarious, right? And my colleagues were just like speechless because they didn't really want to do it, but I was making them do it. And but the administrators got like kudos. You guys are doing great. Keep up the good work. Love these charts. Thank you for the copy. We'll see you later. See you in 7 years or whatever it was, right? So we're like, yeah. But then suddenly I lost my license because in New York State, a temporary license, as in a Canadian can have a temporary license, is only temporary for 3 years. Well, I thought I could renew it. You can't. So I'm like, I live in wait. So a doctor in an underserved area, Keysville. They need a doctor. And you're saying that I can't doctor because my 3 years is up? Oh, we're so sorry. Well, of course, I didn't understand the system. I don't pay at that time didn't pay attention, right? Temporary license. I figure, well, I just renew the temporary license. How hard could that be? No, it's non-renewable. I went to the state, the governor, so the lawyer that was supposed to get my green card who skipped out and did not, right? I actually reported him to the bar association. Oh, he was pissed. So, but then I found Teresa Gibbons, another lawyer. She felt so sorry for me. She goes, "Oh, you're in an underserved area. We could have gotten your green card in less than a year." And I'm like, "Really?" She goes, "Let me take over the case. Yeah, don't bother. Don't worry about the thousands of dollars. I'm just going to charge you minimal because I feel so bad for you." So it was too late to save that job. By that time, my husband then got a different job at in California, and so by the time I got my green card, I'd already shifted gears. But that the medical, um, let's say the medical politics, I wasn't too thrilled with because it was more about, and many of you know this already, like more about the number of people you see per hour rather than the quality of the care.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Sad.
yeah. Yeah, they would actually bring a consultant in who would say, This is a systems problem. You're not billing correctly. If you teach people how to bill correctly, you'll get more money." So I'm like, "So you're saying that I don't have to see more patients, but bill correctly and document correctly for them?" Yes, right? We all heard it. What does the hospital administrators do? They go, "You need to see more patients. We're going to cut your salary by 40% because you're not seeing enough patients." I'm like, "Well, what about what the consultant said?" Right? Like, are you not going to train us how to bill correctly? So it's like they had their idea of what they wanted. The consultant said something different. They didn't like what the consultant said, so they just ignored it.
Oh my.
So that, and then I said, "Well, see ya. I'm going to California." So I went to California. I did get a job at UCLA. It was a fantastic experience. Got to teach residents and students and medical students. Did loved the teaching. It was awesome. And then what happened is my husband's like, "I hate it here." I actually found a skating community, adult skating community, which I loved. Skated in the same ice as Sasha Cohen, Michelle Kwan, Timothy Gable. It was amazing. Um, and I'm like, but I like it here, right? My husband's like, I hate it here. So I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm done. We are moving one more time. And I'm going to uproot my entire practice one more time. And that is it. Next time we are not moving. You move, I'm not going, you know. So we kind of went back and forth, and finally we said we're going to go back to Lake Placid. I knew I wasn't going to work for the hospital anymore because of all the politicking, and it wasn't about the patients, it was about money. So I thought, okay, well, I could maybe do a private practice. But the funny thing is I thought I was really going to miss UCLA, but the politics started creeping in there too. So what I had was a really, really good thing going, and when I left, it just shattered. Yeah, one of the best programs, resident training programs in the country. One of the best rated ones. They just destroyed it.
Oh,
Yeah, all about the
wow.
money. Yeah, and with some, I remember some of my residents who we really loved each other. They were like, "Why are you leaving?" I said, "Well, two reasons. One, my husband hates it here, and second of all, I've seen this. It's all about the money. I've seen it before. I'm not making that same mistake. I'm not doing this again."
Mhm.
And they moved us to a new building and said, "Oh, we're going to give you this and that and this and that. It's going to be great." I said, "Put it in writing.
Mhm.
Put it in writing." They're like, Dr. Karen, like, stop being such a pain. They're giving us, I'm like, no, seriously, it's not real until, and guess what? They reneged on all of it. All of
Wow.
it. Yeah. Yep. And then we found out through a paperwork left somewhere that it shouldn't have been left, that the top two people that, we knew they earned more money because they were like, we'll say president, co-president, or whatever, that ran the department, that somehow, somewhere, I don't know how this piece of paper ended up in a shelf somewhere in the meeting room. We found out how much more money they were making. So they were literally selling us out, the rest of the faculty. And I was like, wow, I really liked you guys. Yeah, so it was like politicking and just realizing that, wow, I gotta go out on my own. So that's what I did. And on my own, it was still difficult. I ended up with fibromyalgia chronic fatigue syndrome when I came back home because, again, I chose an underserved area, right, where there was a job, and I just burnt myself out. My husband wanted to, he was very unhappy in UCLA, so he went and wanted to build a house and homestead, and then I funded the whole thing. I worked massive numbers of days with no time off because I had the thought that was all about, making somebody happy.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. And was killing myself to make someone happy. Because my mom told me that's what you do when you're married. That's your job. I was like, oh my gosh, how screwed up is that, right? But I learned a lot. I learned a lot. And so we built the house. We lost the spouse. I kept the house because he couldn't afford the house and he'd rather me have it than somebody he didn't know. So I still have that house today. And he's since remarried and has three kids. And, it's all good. Like, we even had them over for Thanksgiving one year. So it's all good from that front. But boy, that's a lot of learning. And then I finally had to let go of that underserved job because it was like 2 hours of travel a day, through like winter storms, all sorts of stuff. And they got to a point where they also said, you need to see more patients. But in this case, it wasn't because of the hospital, but they literally needed the money. You know what I mean? They're like, why can't you see this many patients? I broke down and said, because I'm sick. And the staff were like, we knew something was wrong, but we didn't know what. And I was like crying, and they're crying, and they're like, but we want to help you. And I was like, oh my gosh, I never thought, since I was like one of the only doctors in that space, that everybody came to me or the other doctor. Like we were the rock in that town. And I thought, well, I'm here to support them. They can't support me. So that was a big learning. It could, because the minute they knew I was sick, they would be like, nope, we're blocking off this part of your schedule. Drug rep, nope, she's not seeing you today or ever. Like they were protecting me and
Nice.
taking ownership of, let me do that. You do this, let me do that. And I was like, I didn't know what it meant to be supported. That was so cool. That was so cool. And then I know we're running end of time here. I didn't know I was going to talk this whole time. You were just, politely nodding your head while I'm going on and on, and laughing at my silly jokes. But yeah, I, finally had to go into private practice, do the holistic medicine. I had to heal myself, right? I just had to really be sick for a while to really honor all those lessons of pushing and codependency, and just whose idea was it that, and my parents went through a loss because they felt like, oh my gosh, she's giving up medicine. What's going to become of her? My dad literally said, can you earn money with acupuncture? And my husband at the time, he was like, you're crazy. Okay, you're like doing this woo woo acupuncture stuff. That's okay in a big city, but we're in a small town. These are our like rednecks here. He's like,
Wow.
they're not, you're going to be like, no one's going to come to you. And I'm like, you know what? I'm doing this because I love it, and we'll see. Right. And soon enough, there were 3 acupuncturists in town, actually 4 at one point. you
Wow.
know, uh, People change, and we just, like, the Kevin Costner thing, if you build it, they will come. It was kind of like that. So, and part of me is stubborn. So I'm like, I'm proving you wrong. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was good. It was a wonderful experience. And then after that, I got the message that I was, saying the same thing, patient after patient after patient. And it was all this self-empowerment, learning, that I'd just seen thousands of people over the years, and just like, here's the pattern, right? And just like you do, the belief patterns, the conditioning, the stuff that I went through that made me sick. So sharing some of that and realize, wow, I'm saying the same thing over and over again all day long. I ended up being like just taking care of 20 people overall. After a while, 20 seemingly dedicated people. And I thought there must be a more efficient way of doing this. So then I thought, I'm going to create a course. It was called the Holistic Health Transformation Program. And my friend Kathy and Sabine were part of that, and started doing some talks, around town. Really, really enjoyed that. Found it, well, this one to many. That's pretty cool. And then finally, I got the hint. I thought, okay, this online stuff, it's kind of hard to do, but I feel the pull to teach more people. And so when 2019 came around, I'd said to my patients, I might be retiring and doing just online stuff in about 2 years. 2 years sort of in November 2019, and I said 1.5 to 2 years. My letter actually said. So I thought, well, at that point, I was doing muscle testing, body code, emotion code, a little bit of my own modality, and then connect to source. Source said May 2019. I'm like, okay, well, that was the earliest time I was gonna close the office, but I kind of sort of think November, because part of me didn't want to disappoint people,
Yeah.
the loss, the abandonment, that kind of thing. But then immediately after I was like planning November, there was something that happened in the office where another doctor was told by a nurse that I was doing something wrong, and I ended up in front of the state board under investigation. But the minute I got the letter, I knew exactly what it was. It was a message from the universe that said, we said May. And I was like,
Wow.
I got it, I got it, I got it. May it is, May it is. Okay, retiring in May. Right? So we dealt with that and it was fine. It was fine. I just because I knew what it was for. I knew that was my hint, like a kick in the butt to go, we said May. And I didn't know why May, but I'm like, okay. So we dealt with that. It took 8 months to resolve and it was fine. Right. And I'm like, well, even if I lose my license, who cares? I'm retiring. And so that was fine. And I didn't lose my license, but it was just a technical error, like heaven forbid I prescribe CBD at an institution. Oh my gosh, like really, like big red flags. Woo. Anyway,
Jeez, right?
yeah. So after retiring in May, and then as we all know, that pandemic hit. And
Mhm.
had I not retired in May and prepared what I prepared business wise, I would have been in some financial pickles. So the universe is really trying to help me out so I could get prepared. And that next year, I doubled my income.
Wow.
So I was like, thank you. And it's just like trusting, trusting that guidance now more and more and more and more. And so it's really, really exciting. And so now it's mostly, energy medicine, teaching. I have my light medicine community. We do a free mini healing every month. It's super fun. Reading what energies are happening in the world and speaking to that. Definitely 2020 was very interesting with the whole censorship cancellation. I was very outspoken, did not understand I'm being a doctor, got the doctor hat on, got the science hat on. This is not making sense, guys. So I'm like just speaking out, not thinking too much about it. It's like, you know, it's like off with your head. Like it's like no for you. Like I was like, you're banned from Facebook. I'm like, what? But it's based on science.
Right?
Then yeah, YouTube was
Not
interesting. I
our
just got
science?
one. I think I got two strikes on YouTube. Okay, you guys love this, and I'll end with this. The second strike on YouTube was I had posted, and they were crawling it for the past. So there was like this was last year when I was in Aruba around this time. I got my staff said you got a strike on YouTube. I'm thinking I didn't say anything recently that I could think of. It was an old video, and this is the title of the video, guys. Scientific proof that love affects healing or something like that. The science so this wait, the scientific evidence okay. The healing effects of love, something like that, right?
Mhm.
And I took a screenshot because I'm using this for advertising. And I was able to it is funny because two truthers had won the network marketing award for our company. They were sitting at another table. I did want to meet them, so this was a really great starter conversation to talk with them. And I said, hey, I just got canceled on YouTube. They're like, for what? Right? So I tell them the title of the video and they're like, wow, scientific evidence for the healing properties of love. There it is. That's what it was. So then I even showed the CEO of the company. I said, David, check us out. I just got canceled on YouTube. And he's just like shaking his head, Yeah, yeah. So I was like, okay. But then I realized, you know what? It seemingly doesn't matter how much I proclaim whatever it is. When people aren't ready to hear it, they're not ready to hear it. And it made very little impact, unfortunately. It
Mhm.
certainly didn't make an impact on my family. My community was kind of there already, but it didn't make an impact to the people closest to me. So I'm like, well, there's no point then. But I had to do the experiment, right? To try.
Mhm.
Even one of the nurse practitioners that I'm very good friends with. I mean, I lived with her house like for a year. Like we're really good friends. And she says, don't talk to me about the jibby jabby. We won't say the word
Mhm.
because she's like, I work with an immunologist and blah, 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 blah. And, you people, blah, blah. She says, don't ever talk to me about this again. I was just trying to see if you looked at the science too, but I guess not.
Oh
Yeah,
my.
yeah. And then she retired, which is good because then she would have had to face the what happened after, right? She did not. A lot of the colleagues did. They
Mhm.
retired at the perfect time, so they didn't actually. And one of my colleagues was a ophthalmologist, and he started blowing the whistle. But he was retiring, you know. He said nobody listened to him. at New York State.
So
He was shocked. He thought, I'm an ophthalmologist. I'm a specialty. I'm seeing this thing. This is not good, guys. Warning, warning, warning. I think we really should reconsider this recommendation, right? Crickets. And he's
yeah.
like, well, I'm retiring. So literally it's like, yeah, yeah. So it's been very, very interesting. Just doing this kind of work and like, meeting and other people and then working with people like you and we're on the same page and knowing how the body heals itself and being in the movie together and having best-selling books written together. Like it's just super, super cool. So I'm really grateful. Thanks for letting me share my very long story.
Oh, it's so interesting to hear people's stories. Everybody has such different stories, such different backgrounds, but at the heart of all the stories, like it's all love. It's all about how do we make it in this crazy mixed up world where up is down and down is up and it's like people don't seem to notice that everything is backwards and inside out.
Yeah, and then being that frequency of love despite all the different challenges, right? Instead of reacting, 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 which I used to be very reactive. Like I would get on my high horse and be like, I'm fighting this and I'm fighting that. And even, a cover of one of my books I was going to publish called Spiritual Medicine, The Battle for Light with Light and Dark. And then I realized I'm not in the battle mode anymore. I can't publish this book. Yeah, doesn't make any sense to me anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. Once we get out, we're so trained in battle modes,
Yep.
right from the beginning that it's really difficult to get out. But once you get out of battle mode and you realize it's all love and we open up and we allow that intuition to guide us, we're being guided by source. Like, what can go wrong? It's so
Yeah.
much easier.
So much easier. Like things, I call them abundance challenges that happen in our physical 3D world that we do not plan on or desire necessarily. It's sometimes undesired things. But then on just knowing that, okay, I don't know how this is for the highest greatest good, but I'm just going to trust that it is and that I'll be guided to my next step. Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
Wow, Karen, I'm so glad to know you. I am so glad to know that you are out in the world, making the world a better place, helping all of your clients, helping people to realize that it's not just about pills and shots and those things. We have light inside us. And that when we tune into the light inside us, there's nothing that can stop us.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're doing this together, which is very exciting and a privilege, a real privilege. So thank you, Lisa, for showcasing my story and having me on the show. And it's been wonderful working with you.
Thank you so much. So, Karen, how do people find you if they'd like to know more or join your academy? What?
Okay, yeah. So the easy way is just karencan.com. And we actually have an online community on the app called Circle. It's kind of like Facebook without censorship and without the ads. But it
Gotcha.
functions very similarly. You can like and you can comment. And so people ask for support there. We have several different channels, if you will. We have a calendar. Like I said, we have a free monthly healing session that people can attend and actually put in their healing requests, even where we put them in a 24-hour healing basket where their, conscious frequencies being, sent immersion of love, that kind of thing. So it's kind of a nice freebie, and we have a whole bunch of other freebies as well. There's too many to list, but joining the community is absolutely free. So you can just go to karencan.com/community, and then you join us there. Introduce yourself, like where you're from, or where you live right now, what your interests are, and you'll probably find someone else that's actually closer and local to you because our community seems to be from all over, and it's just fascinating that people didn't know that somebody was like a couple miles away or at least in the same state, or it's kind of neat that way. And we always have real fun things coming up, whether it be on the podcast or camp or the launch of different programs. So if you're in the community, you'll be in the know. So thank you, Lisa.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Karen. It's so lovely to hear your story. And it's just great because no matter how much you know somebody, you can always learn more when you hear their stories. So it's so
Mhm.
enlightening. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Lisa. And yeah, I really appreciate the work that you do. So thank you.
Thank you. So everyone, go look for Dr. Karen because she is doing beautiful things in the world. So until next time, create for yourselves a great life story because you can. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to this episode of Connecting You to You Radio. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and share it with your friends. Are you ready to discover more about how simple healing your body can actually be when you do it from the higher wisdom of your soul? To learn more about what I do and how you can work with me, visit connectingyoutoyou.com and get on my mailing list to be the first to know about my latest offerings. If you'd like to interact with me on Facebook, please join my group, Soul Sourced Healing. Check the show notes below for these links and more. I hope to see you again next time on Connecting You to You Radio.